Thank you. Wonderful introduction. Okay, so we are going to start with a panel, with first presenting a panelist, and then I'm going to ask you to start with a very brief video in order to explain a little bit better about some topics we are going to discuss during the panel. So, with me today, on my left side, left and right, is Mr. Darko Liović. He is the president of board of HAMAG-BICRO. Most of you know what HAMAG-BICRO do, so we'll do it later. Then we have Paulo Andrez. Paulo is business angel, board member of DNA Cascais, and president Emeritus of EBAN. EBAN is the largest European network of business angels. Our organization, Crane, is also a member of this big organization. Then we have Špigel. Ivo is my friend, first of all, co-founder of Incubator, and still co-owner of one of the oldest, if not the oldest, startup, we may say, this time, which is now called Perpetuum Model, a software company in Croatia. Then we do have John Soberg, co-founder and general partner at Expansive Ventures. And last but not the least is Mr. Marcel Shaton. He is general manager of Israeli Research and Development Directorate for European Research Area. And not to mention a lot, but I would like just to stress that he was the Minister of Economic Affairs in the Embassy of Israel at the Mission of Israel to European Community in Bristol, and Foreign Trade Administrator in Ministry of Industry and Trade in Jerusalem. And he was at the end the Deputy Director of Foreign Trade Administration, so as he said, proud public servant. Okay, so I would like you just from the beginning to look at a short video which would briefly describe some of the topics and maybe clarify some things that we, especially in Croatia, mix up about business angel, about early stage investment, about who is who on the stage, who is getting money, who is giving money, and what is getting out of it. So, if I may ask you to play the video.
There are 7 things you think you know about business angels.
Sound.
Business angels only invest within their own region. Incorrect. They look for the best teams and ideas no matter where they come from. Yes, in our sector we already play in the single market. Well, someone has to. 2. There are only a few business angels in Europe. Wrong. Today Europe has nearly 260,000 angel investors, and the number is rapidly growing. If you still think it's a small group, invite them to dinner and pay the bill. 3. Angel investors are all old businessmen, disconnected from recent business trends. Misconception. A new young angels generation is on the rise. One day, maybe we'll be old, but not today. 4. Business angels are only successful in the US, where they funded Google and Facebook and Skype and Rovio, and I beg your pardon, these were actually businesses initially funded by European investors. How about that? 5. Business angel investment in early stages is limited compared to venture capital. I see. Where did you get that from? In 2012, VC funds invested 1.9 billion euros in early stage companies, while business angels invested 5.1 billion euros. You got that, huh? 6. Business angels are lone wolves determined to take full control of startups. I guess so they'd be more like business devils than angels, wouldn't they? I suppose they do have a wolf-like habit to invest in packs. It's like having a friend who knows people who know people who know people who know even more people. 7. Business angels mean money. I see your point. No, I don't. Money isn't everything. The truth is, the money they provide comes along with equally valuable mentoring and network. You know what they say, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So, are we clear now? Well, let's see. Time for a quiz. Which countries have the best business angel tax incentives? UK and Turkey. Which country has the most advanced policy supporting angel networks? Spain. Which country has the most advanced knowledge and practice in angel syndication? Ireland. What are the top 2 countries in Europe concerning the visible angel investment market size? UK and Spain. Which countries have the best business angel co-investment funds? Portugal and Netherlands. Which country has on average the most developed and active business angel networks? Finland. Now you actually know. Let's fund the future.
Okay, so maybe some things has been misunderstood in the past. I'm not sure that everything is clear up to now, but I will make sure that this video is going to be shared on the networks many times. I didn't want to do it so far, not to spoil the opportunity to show it here the first time. It's pretty nice showing what my colleagues as business angels do and what are we not going to do. But this, as always, this is maybe the one general rule, and always it can be an exception, so depending on who are going to speak with. So for the beginning, I will start with Paulo. And first maybe to also give my ideas and overview about possibility of investment for startups generally in Croatia and Southeast Europe is maybe not my area of expertise, absolutely. But so far in Croatia we have many problems, and in this area the main problem is that we don't have proper VC, which is necessary for the startup ecosystem to take the second level of funding after some initial seed fund was placed by either friends or families or business angel. So we do have some small amount of angel money on the table. Some projects already got first rounds, and this problem basically ends up like this, that some very good projects end up financing and continuing their work outside of Croatia. We spoke about it even before the panel a few times, and of course this is partly the brain drain, which is not so good for the country. We try always to keep development here, but we would also like to keep the other parts of the projects also in Croatia. And one of the main reasons why we are not able to do is basically that we have to finance our startups with foreign money, which most of the times lead with requests to open SPV or any kind of company in the domestic area, which is usually Bulgaria, Hungary, sometimes Germany, US or England. So what is your overview about Southeast Europe and Croatia, and what we can do for the start? What you need is what you think is the basic ground and where we could start from?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you for inviting me to be here. It's really a pleasure. I've been talking with a lot of startups here in Croatia, and as far as I talk with the entrepreneurs, I don't see a big difference between the Croatian entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs in Europe. I'm not talking about Israel, I'm not talking about US, but I'm talking about in Croatia. And one thing that I feel sad about, and it's not just a problem for Croatia, is that there are some countries in Europe that invest a lot of money in education of young people, taking them to university. And after all this investment, then these people go to Germany free of charge. So basically, there was, Croatia is financing Germany, Croatia is financing UK, because you have all the costs and they take the benefit. Of course, because maybe you are a very, very rich country, you can do that. But I don't know if it is really good. And even with the startups, I don't think it's a really fantastic idea to bring foreign investors, and maybe I'm saying it is in the wrong place, and maybe I will not be invited anymore to be here. But I think that if you invest a lot and you have here the incubators, you have here the support for SMEs, and when they are showing some traction, then comes a foreign investor and invests in the company, takes the headquarters of this company to UK, to Germany, and maybe you consider this as a success, but this is not a success. You have to find your investors here. There is no reason to not to have investors here. I give you an example. I come from Portugal, and this situation was absolutely the same 6 years ago in Portugal. There are no angel investors. The government say, no, we don't have, they are risk averse. So the government took the decision to create a co-investment fund with business angels. So when the angels invest, the government invests, and that changed completely. We have the main market in Europe is UK. The people say, oh, everything is fantastic there. Okay, but let's see, why? The UK government, the English government has a tax break, which means that an investor that invests in a startup can deduct until 50% of the money that they have invested. And so, you know how much money was invested last year in UK just because of this policy? £1 billion. £1 billion. So there are no miracles. It's not like in Croatia nothing can happen, and in UK everything can happen. It's not like that. It's the policies. And this is, I think there is a huge role for the government to enter in this process. And we can talk. I don't want to talk more now because you have other speakers.
Okay, great introduction from your side, starting with UK also example. Yesterday I was on Rexpo conference with His Excellency Ambassador of UK in Croatia, and basically he also stated something like this, that this is not a miracle, but it needs to be political will and political courage in order to do something like that. And I think if Portugal, for example, was able to do something, then definitely Croatia can do something, because Portugal is not the top of the EU developing countries and stuff like this. So you mentioned a few things which are important. You mentioned government support in the beginning, but how it sounds that government co-invest with some private person who is perceived as wealthy. What does it mean in the terms of public opinion and helping these rich tycoons in order to get more richer? How did you solve this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I like that question, because I talk with a lot of governments and it comes always with that question, and I love them. And then I ask the government, okay, so you want to create jobs, you want to support innovation, so what do you do? And usually they say, we provide grants. Oh, you provide grants, free money. Oh, that's fantastic, you are a really rich country, you can do that. Because what are the skills of the government to select which are the best startups? I don't know any government with that skill, so please, if you tell me one government. And what is the reason? And maybe I will not be invited next year, especially by this guy here on my right side. But I have a big question. I don't understand grants. Sorry to tell you, I don't understand. So if there is a startup that needs 10 million kuna, okay, to make an investment, and this startup is very successful, and in 5 years they are producing, in terms of profits, 100 million kuna. Why that company cannot take that money back to the system to support other companies? Why the Croatian taxpayers are giving this money free for that company? So that company was successful. So why this company was successful? This company can bring the money back to the system. So if you do this change, stop grants, stop giving free money, transform grants into venture money, and then, which means that you invest in the company. If the company is successful, then they will return the money. If you do this, you will triplicate the money available for startups. And then, if you do something very simple, you invest with VCs, with business angels, you duplicate the money. So, with the same amount of money, you can do 6 times more investments. So, only rich countries can do grants. If you're not a rich country, you have to use your money wisely, and you have to invest. You have to multiply that money, and that is something that a lot of countries are doing. And I think Russia has nothing to lose with that. Last thing is, Another thing that I will not be invited next year. I don't understand why I don't see anybody here in this panel from your diaspora. You look for foreigners, but the guys.
Oh, we tried with diaspora in the past.
Yeah, but you have to create links with your diaspora. You have 5 million or more people, Croats, that are around the world. They own companies. They have access to the markets. They understand your culture. They speak your language. So who are those best people to support your entrepreneurs? Why you are inviting a Portuguese guy? Why you are inviting a US guy? Invite the Croats that they are...
Darko in an interesting position that he would be able to answer some of your questions from the position of what we do in Croatia. But okay, with the diaspora we tried in the past, it was not so successful, not because of the diaspora, I think, but okay, this is already like political topics, maybe I will not be invited anymore also if I continue like this. So, Darko, since you are now the president of the board of the one and only combined together big agency that is basically having an aim also to finance and to help the entrepreneurship. What do you think about what Paulo mentioned, and what can we do and what we are going to do in Croatia in order to bridge this gap of financing from the very early stage to the stages when venture capitalists can later step on?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to present the measures of HAMAG-BICRO here in this forum. I understand your point of view, but you need to understand also the structure of the market. You know, the people in Croatia love brand. You know, in the police in Croatia loves brand, and if you want to do something, actually the only kind and the only thing that you can do right now is to give the grants and to support the successful project to the grants. However, we are changing also our policy, and our aim is to introduce also financial instruments as other instruments to support the SME sector. You mentioned that we don't have venture capital fund here in Croatia, but I need to inform you that together in the cooperation with the World Bank, we have started to develop a new scheme. And our plan is to establish first venture capital fund here in Croatia in next 6 months. Basically, it will be mixed private and government fund, and the size of the venture capital fund will be around 40 million euros. Also, we will present another scheme. It will basically be the co-matching, seed co-matching measure. It actually means if business angels decide to invest money in the equity of the SMEs in startups in Croatia, we will put the same amount also in this company. This will be the so-called convertible loan, and it will be free of interest loan for the period that business angel decides to invest in the private companies. Also, we have started 2 years ago a new scheme. It is called micro loans for our start companies. Basically, it's the best micro loan in the Croatian market. The interest rate is below 1%, and it is exclusively for startup companies. It's for 5 years period with a grace period of 9 months, and we have in last 2 years invest more than 8 million kunas in this startup company. So I think that there is a huge potential. The potential is growing, and we will develop our policy in order to support development of SMEs in Croatia.
So things are hopefully moving. I have seen already that Ivo recorded what you said, and probably he will count days and hoping that you will keep your promise. So beside the Croatian example, maybe Marcel can share a little bit with us the example what Israeli government did in order to boost the startup and IT community, research and development in Israel. I think it's on just.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to apologize that half the time it's not the standard here and shoes and not sneakers. They are in my suitcase for the trip, for the travel, and I thought that maybe it's not correct, but I did the wrong decision. But I can promise you that in my office, I have no ties and no suit. This is standard in Israel. But I understand that here in this group, we need, so I'm sorry not to be online. Concerning the question, it's very, I thought that we will speak about investor, and when you say investor, you think about the private sector. You don't think about the government. You never want the government to be an investor for equity. This is, but it's always, when you want to speak about support, investor and so on, you speak vis-à-vis the government, and the investors themselves don't speak about themselves. So it's a remark that it's everywhere. In Israel, I think we didn't build a plan how to deal with the matter. We react to the reality. And as a matter of fact, we built bricks by bricks, layer by layer. I don't think that you can build angel system if you have no VC system. And if you have not already a strong startup industry, because who are the angel guys in Israel? The one who went out from good deals on exit. So they were industrialists for certain, and some people who built, and they decided to be angels. So it's something which is an evolution, an evolution of the society. That was the Israeli government put for the VCs. There was some interest already by some VC companies in the States, maybe because of the diaspora, as you said. So we have a diaspora and we work with it. And but we saw that people coming in, it was very slow. And there was not, at that time, a very strong, I would say, local investment vision. And if we heard the story of Tomer, and that one of the first, the march was to look in the States, also some funds. So the Israeli government decided in the early 80s to build a fund for taking participation in VC company. If a VC company put $1, the Israeli government will put another $1. And this is a Portuguese story because they took it, I mean, the first experience for that was in Israel. And what was very interesting, that 10 years after, there was enough VC companies established in Israel, and this company, Yozma, which was a governmental one, was sold. With all the funds, and Yozma is not existing anymore, as such as a government support instrument. It is another VC in the market. So the idea is to react to the reality and to see what are the lack in the system. We were lucky that we had it, and we'll speak about it. Now I'm doing a promo for my presentation at 1:30, so be present, where I will explain more or less the system. But the idea is to react to where you see something is missing, and not to build a model before the problems are there. Because the sentence you said about the Croatian liking grants, they like grants when they don't need money. But if they need money, they will agree to go on conditional loans and so on, because this risk system is not built on grants. It's built on conditional, if you are successful, you have to reimburse the advance from the government. If you like, and I will speak about my other hat, it is the framework program, there is a grant of 125% on a cost of 100%. So you should go there. There is a lot of grants and no more difficulties because you have to find partnership. And also maybe a thing that we had in Israel, and help for the investor. The market was small, and we can't build a business plan out of the market. So from the beginning, a startup or a new company, there is a big discussion. What is a startup and what is a new company? I won't get into this issue. Has to think globally, of course, and not to think in the market. So if you think globally, it's easier to go abroad also for funding.
Okay. Thank you. But of course, we all have money for nothing. And here, John is the guy who is going to give us money for nothing, of course, John. How it is, we have seen on the video that there are some wolves over there, and Paul already explained with video that business angels are not the wolves, but are VCs maybe having big teeth and ears and doing impacts. And how it is.
So I guess if angels are not the wolves, then VCs have to be, or
somebody has to be.
But then you can talk about early stage VCs versus later stage VCs, you know, because we're the friendly guys, the early ones.
So is there money for nothing also from VCs? No grants.
No grants.
No. Why?
Because our industry is set up to make our investors money. If we don't make our investors money, then our funds don't do very well, and we won't be here for too long either. So, at the end of the day, I think we've been talking quite a bit about different governmental programs, and I do think governmental programs have a role in trying to get ecosystems started. Expansive Ventures is one of the only, I think, VC funds in Silicon Valley that does early stage investments outside of the US. I know of maybe one or two guys that are doing it like us, but not very many. So we spend quite a bit of time in different ecosystems looking at the way things are developing. And the simple thing that I would say is that money follows quality. And so when you look at Israel, the government program helped, but there was high quality entrepreneurs there and people going after big ideas. And I think that you can't underestimate how important that is in terms of driving actual investment. Even if you have the most impressive co-investment fund, and I can tell you there's a few. Taiwan, for example, is launching one right now where they give the VCs back 100% of their profits. So there's others that are cutting risk. These guys are giving you all the upside. So if they put half of my fund in, all the money they make, they give back to me. So that if I invest in Taiwan, but I can tell you, if there's no good companies in Taiwan for me to invest in, I'm not going to put any money there. So you can't put the cart before the horse. You have to have great quality entrepreneurs going after big problems to attract VC money. It's just pretty simple. So I think that when the talk about the diaspora is very important, because when you really look at the best ecosystems around the world, is Silicon Valley because of the money, or is it because of the people? And I would actually argue that it's because of the people, because there's no other place on earth where you have a higher concentration of people that have built and scaled huge businesses from the ground up. There is no other place like it. And so you have an expertise there, and you have people that have given back to the community over and over and over, and they keep going back and building new companies. And the money is there for sure, but there's a reason the money continues to be there. It's because of that, continued process of building great companies. And Tel Aviv is number 2 in the world at this point. It's ahead of New York, it's ahead of LA, it's ahead of London. So, it's not about necessarily the population, it's about the quality. So I think that when people are looking at developing ecosystems and attracting capital, the most important thing is to try to help mentor and foster great companies, and then the money will come. The money's not going to come first.
One brief question also for John, with yes or no, and I know that VCs are very good with straight answers. So if you would find a company in Zagreb which would have valuation about, let's say, 5 to 10 million US dollars, which is shooting your idea about investing in your proposals and whatever from Expansive Ventures, would you invest in Croatian-based entity, or you would ask them to open company in Silicon Valley for selling and marketing and keep developing here? So yes or no, would you invest or you would not? If you need to give the straight answer.
I could. You asked two questions.
Okay, let's do the first
one. One was when I invest, and the other was when I make the move.
Well, first is, would you invest in the Croatian-based entity as it is?
Yes.
Good. I like your answer.
So let me expand just a little bit. We don't necessarily require anybody to move. So part of our model is that we believe that entrepreneurs can build companies from anywhere. That said, I would probably not invest in a Croatian company that was not going global. So they better be going global. And
global is the must. But how many companies you invested in Croatia already?
That answer is 0 so far.
And maybe Slovenia,
nothing there.
Bosnia,
nothing
Hungary.
Well, let me ask.
I would not invest.
Let me ask a question the other way. How many billion-dollar startups have come out of Croatia or Slovenia?
Oh, we do have few. One of mine is already here. He is in Boston. Marco.
Can I just hop in for a second? To answer your question, John, there actually is a billion-dollar company based in Slovenia, or built out of Slovenia. And for those who don't know, the company is called Outfit 7, and they're the makers of the very popular Talk and Tom application.
When you are asking if in Croatia, angels and VCs are not only giving money, they also follow the company and try to be mentors as far as they can do. So it's quite difficult to do it from Croatia in the States. And it's easier to do it from Zagreb in Croatia. So an investor, angel, would have a propensity to go and invest nearby in order to follow the company and to see what is going. It's not those investors are not passive investors. They are active investors.
Of course, I know I do the same. Mostly I'm pretty active, and most of my guys who got investments said later that the money was not the first thing. Is it so, Marco? Was the money most important thing when I invested in Repsli? No. Okay, thanks. So, for Ivo, you started with explaining us a little bit about scene in Slovenia and Europe, and maybe from your side, a little bit overview, since you interviewed most of the entrepreneurs and business angels and biggest VC which are operating in the region. What do you think? What is the biggest problem that we don't have VC in Croatia now, and we have the lack of capital for funding the early stage projects here? Not only in Croatia, but also in some other parts of the region.
Well, I'll just start with a different comment. I first found out about this conference about half a year ago, and I have to admit I was skeptical because, for different reasons. I'm very happy that my skepticism was overcome. So I want to congratulate the whole team. I mean, we had a very small part.
You want to be invited next time also?
So one, I'm very impressed that the conference took place, and the second thing, I think it's the first time in my life that I'm in a conference in Croatia where there's a politician sitting in the first row that is here all the time and not leaving after 5 minutes. So that's policymaker. Okay. But anyway, yes. So back to your question. So your question was, what is the main reason why we don't have a VC here?
Yes. Why don't we have enough capital in Croatia?
Well, I think Croatia is a really nice place. As Paulo explained to us, it's a very rich country. So we have enough money to give grants and to do many other things that only rich countries can afford. For 25 years we gave money to shipyards, and now finally we're not giving money to shipyards anymore, so that's a welcome change. I actually made one calculation in one of my articles in the magazine that for the price that we put into those shipyards in 25 years, we could have built 2 large hadron colliders. So, you know, the big LHC infrastructure facility in CERN. So all of the countries, the rich countries in the world, had to come together to build that facility. Croatia could have built 2 all by itself. So when we entered the EU a year and a half ago, we could have had one as a present to the EU and kept one for ourselves. Another wonderful thing about Croatia is that not only is it a very rich country, but it's a country where you can always relax. So in Croatia, there's no hurry to do anything. There's mostly always manjana or fjaka. And one very good example of that is VCs. So as you, Saša, know very well, and most of us know very well, there have been many, many initiatives to start VC fund in Croatia by different organizations. And so far they have not happened. So it's really great to hear from Darko that it will happen. It's now on Twitter, so it's official. So, and one of the reasons why that did not happen is that, at least until now, all of those that were responsible to make the decision were not in a hurry. Because there's no rush, other countries are falling behind. Croatia is moving very fast ahead of everybody. So why should we hurry? And we can always take our time and delay all the crucial decisions until somebody else makes us do something.
Okay, maybe not is always to blame and expect that government would do something. Paulo nicely mentioned some things, of course, which government can do, like tax incentives, which are proving very good in UK, Turkey. I speak with some guys from Turkey, from EBAN, and they said that it's also we're going very well with tax incentive there. But you also mentioned about investment readiness and that we need to, you said something like train also the other side, like entrepreneurs to invest in other sides or other things, not only to buy a property and then try to wait until it become building area and stuff like this, but maybe to invest in something else. So, is it the training? Is it maybe that we need to have a role model? What would be the biggest boost in order to have, as Dave McClure said when he was in Croatia, more people willing to write checks? Private persons or entities, not government.
Yeah, before I answer your question, I just would like to comment towards 3 things here. First, I see a problem in Croatia. You want to have a business angel community. So the business angels are private people that put their money. They cannot compete with grants. So if you have an entrepreneur that has an option to have free money one side and the other option is to have the business angel, and then the entrepreneur will go to the free money. And then you say, oh, there are no angels, because of course the angel cannot give free money. So what is the option? If there is competition with grants, you cannot build a community of angel investors. So something must be done there. So if you want to create 2 things at the same time, with wrong incentives, things will not happen as you expect. Second thing is VCs and angels. I don't want to enter a lot of detail, but as it was mentioned, VCs, there are different types of VCs, early stage VCs and later stage VCs. The problem of VC industry in Europe, and if you see the statistics, is that who funded the VCs were sovereign funds, were banks and other entities like this. But the problem is with the Basel rules, it is considered that money too risky, and so they have to put more capital. So the banks and the sovereign funds and other stakeholders, insurance companies as well, and so they stopped investing in VCs. So the VCs have moved to later stage, and they left a long way for angels. And the data that is available shows, and we've seen this in the video, that the angels invest more than 5 billion euros on early stage per year, while the VCs invest 2 billion euros. So I do not think that the solution is to start with VCs and then have the angels. I don't think. I think that you need to have angels for early stage because they are really strong on that, and for later stage you need VCs. But if you have the VCs in the beginning, then and you don't have business angels, I don't think it will work. Israel is a fantastic example, because before the government has done this co-investment scheme with Sequoia, Yozma VC, there was absolutely nothing, and so this was a change. This has been seen, the intervention of the government has produced a lot of changes in a lot of countries, and so I think it is really important. You mentioned about investment readiness training. There is a misconception that a businessman, a successful businessman, is a fantastic business angel. That is not correct. That is not correct. You can have a fantastic businessman, but he may not be a fantastic business angel. You need a lot of skills. If you have a businessman, you may ask him what is drag along, tag along, kind of clauses that are usual in angel deals, and he doesn't know. So you need to train business angels, businessmen to become business angels. You need to train entrepreneurs to become investment readiness. One of the problems of entrepreneurs, they spend 80% of the time looking for money and 20% of the time trying to improve the company, to reduce the risk. And why investors do not invest in companies? Because it's too risky. It's 30 seconds and we do an exercise here, very simple. Let's assume that each of us has 1 million kuna in the bank, in a safe bank, is guaranteed by the World Bank, by any bank that you want, okay? So there is no risk in the bank. And we have an interest rate from that bank that gives us 4% of interest rate. So we have two options. We take the money at home, 0 interest rate, or we put in this bank 4%. And now we have a third option. Comes an entrepreneur with a great idea, and he gives us 5%. So nobody's going to invest in the entrepreneur because of all the risks. Now, a little change. Then the Croatian government, together with the US government, together with all the governments of the world, so there is no risk on that, says, if people invest on that entrepreneur, and if the entrepreneur does not pay the 5%, then all those entities will pay the 5%, so 0 risk for the investors. All the investors will invest in the entrepreneur. So the problem of investors is reward, but risk. And people don't care about risk. I see a lot of entrepreneurs saying, I have this great idea, I don't have any money, and I want you to invest all the money. I didn't test the market. I don't know what the clients want about this product, because if I tell them, they will steal my idea. And this is a mindset that is wrong. You don't want to put all the risk into the investors because they will not invest, as simply as that. So you need training for entrepreneurs, but also for investors.
We need to do the training that we don't like. We like the money for nothing. Okay. Questions from the audience, maybe, before we comment? Yeah.
To my experience, and maybe I'm wrong, investors, the private investors will say so, or the startup will say so. The entrepreneur tried to build his funding without the government from the beginning. They don't look, because money from the government, there are also conditions. And we know that problem of IP, problem of giving the money back and so on. So, but here, you need a change of mind, but not the one you were speaking about. That, and we have seen that in the case of Tomer, certain entrepreneurs want to keep the equity for themselves. So they rather like loans and grants. And here, if you want to work with business angels or with VCs, it doesn't change. It's not the matter. You need that entrepreneur will understand that he has to give up a little bit of his equity in order to get investment. The investor take a risk. That's right that the VCs are less and less want to take too much risk. We have in Israel a lot of money in the VCs, but they don't find the no risky deals, and they are on a very big mattress of money, and it gave to the business angels to get into the system. But the entrepreneur has to, and the new entrepreneur, in Israel it's quite well perceived, need to give a little bit of his equity if he wants to develop and to go to a new stage, and not to keep the company on his level.
Thank you. Okay, then comment. John commented.
I just have risk. Well, it is actually about the risk. I have one comment about that. And I think that one thing people don't always think about when it comes to VC investment is people compartmentalize VC and they compartmentalize business angels by region. So I may be different than a lot of VCs, but my math is very simple. If I can invest in a company in Silicon Valley that I think is going to be a lot bigger than a company that I could invest in Croatia or Israel or Germany, I'm invested in a company in Silicon Valley. It's not about the risk, it's about the reward. So people talking about trying to minimize the risk, I don't care. I'm really happy that the company makes it, and I'm very happy that the entrepreneur is successful. But if they make an interesting business that makes $10 million a year in revenue, not interesting for me. I need somebody who wants to take over the world. So I'm looking for people who have the risk appetite to go big. And the thing that I think people don't always realize, and part of the reason that VC doesn't gravitate to certain places, is because the competition is global. Of course, when capital goes to the places where the best opportunities are. And that's why I think you see so much capital in Silicon Valley, you see so much capital in Tel Aviv. If there were some drivers for bringing capital in because of the potential, the reason I asked about the billion-dollar companies, if there were $5 or $10 billion companies that had come out of Croatia, you would have a lot of money here. Absolute guarantee, 100%. If you don't have that, it's less likely because people have the opportunity cost of their time, and the best places for them to spend their time are the places where the most exits have been. So the driver is really on the upside. So what you really want to push is getting people to take risks that will make them bigger, to coach people to build bigger businesses, to push people out of their comfort zone a little bit, to try to go big. And that's where you really get the upside in terms of getting investors.
Yeah. Basically, we are doing it, but on the smaller scale that we would like to do. Okay, comment.
Saša, just to add one thing, is what is the best solution for an entrepreneur? Is to put his own money? Is to put his family's money? Is to go to a bank? Is to receive grants? Is to go to a business angel? Is to go to a VC? No. The best money
from the customers.
For the entrepreneur is clients. Clients. If he can get money from the clients, then he will not need VCs, he will not need business angels, unless he needs mentoring, etc. He will not need grants, he will not need anything.
When you
so
have
clients,
but customers,
please
stand in line.
Talk with clients.
Yes. Okay, this is the nice wrap-up. So basically, before one more question or two, we have time. Really, the best money you can get is money from your customers, and then all of us will stand in the line, knocking on your door, and you said, sorry, I'm not available for meeting today, I have to go to fishing or to have a bath or something like this, and then we will get even more eager to meet you. So the questions, može mikrofon tamo, na kraju. Slušam.
Hi, just if someone can comment, please, what should a company look for in a good angel, in terms of mentoring, not money, of course?
Okay, John, maybe for you. What is the characteristics of a good angel?
Yeah, it depends on what you are liking. So if you need networking, if you need intros to potential customers, if you need help in follow-on rounds, if you need someone with experience to help you to grow the company, you must look for an angel with those characteristics. One thing that is also important is I see one big mistake from a lot of entrepreneurs. they consider in the same round the value of different angels at the same level. So if there is an angel, if there is an investor that just puts the money, it's a passive investor, and he agrees with a certain pre-money valuation of the company, then the entrepreneur goes to a business angel that will spend a lot of time with him, will make a lot of intros, he has a lot of knowledge in the sector, and he says the valuation is the same from that passive investor. That's one of the mistakes. So when you approach an angel that will give you a lot of value, you have to have a different terms than from someone that does not add so much value.
Thank you. More questions? One more over there. If there is one more, maybe we can do one more, but just raise the hand immediately that I can see where to direct the microphone to be faster.
Mladenka Dabac, profesor na arhitekturi u Njemačkoj. Ja bih napravila jednu jezičnu parabolu, gdje se govorilo puno o dijaspori. Moje je 40 godina dijaspore u Njemačkoj. Izazov. Da. So I can proceed in English. I'm teaching in Germany for 40 years because we talked about diaspora all the time. Let's globalize diasporas because they have enormous strength all over the world. And I'm going to tell one sentence, it's a definition coming from Germany. Unternehmer ist derjenige, der unternimmt was. The entrepreneur is the person who does everything, every day, something, but something useful. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Okay. One more question?
Yes, thank you. I think it was Mr. Špigel who was commenting on a question about why Croatia doesn't have enough capital in VC. You mentioned that there is actually no need to rush because Croatia is way ahead of others. I think that's not really the case. So, as my personal belief is, Bulgaria at the moment, they are actually called the Silicon Valley of the Balkan. With two investment funds, Lunch Hub and 11, sharing a little more than 21 million euros. And they're working full speed ahead of pushing startups into growth and actually sending bigger companies to the States. So my question is why, even if Croatia is ahead of most countries, but maybe not Bulgaria, why don't you think that that's even bigger chance to be better on the market, to actually be an example for the other countries, and actually make collaboration between countries to actually bring even more startups in the startup scenario? Thanks.
Okay, Ivo.
Well, I just mentioned to John, maybe I wasn't clear enough. I should have put a hashtag satire or irony on that comment. Just as a small anecdote, when we first met our friends from Lunch Hub and 11, this was quite a few years ago, they explained that getting the money from the EIF was a long and difficult process, etc., etc. And they actually suggested or offered to us to help in that process. This was about 1 year before Croatia joined the EU. And I was speaking to a colleague that I know in the public administration in one of the ministries, and he mentioned that actually his organization is responsible for the Jeremy funds, where the EIF money came to the Bulgarians. And we said, well, it's wonderful that we have 1 year to prepare. So as soon as we enter the EU, we can have everything set up and ready to initiate that long, difficult process. Obviously, we had entered the EU a long time ago, but that particular process has not been initiated. I'm glad to hear that some others have. So, of course, Croatia is not far ahead of other countries. I was just trying to make a joke. Coming back to the topic of the best monies from the customers. So, about 2 weeks ago, we were in Vienna for the Pioneers Festival, and I was happy to attend the presentation given by Fred Destin, who is one of probably the most successful VCs in both Europe and the US. And he was talking about the first 24 months in the life of a company, and he just mentioned, I think, one acronym that I would suggest for all the entrepreneurs here to remember, if you just take one thing from this panel, and that acronym was, I think, CIMIY, and that means cash is more important than your mother. So when you think about your mom and you think about cash and cash flow in your company, just prioritize that properly.
So sales cures everything. Some of them says, if you don't have money, sell something fast, and then you have a lot of money and they will be waiting in line to give you more, even the government, sometimes. Okay, I think, we don't have enough. Maybe one more question? There is no question, super.
We can have one more question, but a question. Is it okay?
Okay.
Two people got it. Yep. By the way, guys, great panel. Can you give it up? Please give it warm. Great discussion. And the question was, did you get the microphone? Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Špigel. Can we hear some real numbers about how much investment got these early stage startups you host in your incubator? And second short question, what the P stands for? It's in the ZIP name. It's the Zagreb Incubator P. What is P?
Poduzetništvo, entrepreneurship. It's Croatian.
Okay, so just to repeat once more, so ZIP means Zagrebački Incubator Poduzetništva, and in English it means the Zagreb Entrepreneurship Incubator. That's why we never use the full name, we just always say ZIP, because otherwise it takes too long. So your first question was, how much funding have ZIP teams raised so far? So we have Green Pie, which is our nutrition-oriented cloud-based startup. They raised in the second round 75 and in the first 50. So Green Pie raised 125,000 euros from Launch Hub in Bulgaria. Mad Bars just recently raised 115,000.
It's not published yet.
No, it's not public information.
You just mentioned the valuation.
Okay, so Mad Bars raised at an evaluation of 1 million euros, I think. A seed round from a Hungarian-American group called Traction Tribe. Some of our teams successfully applied for the Pulse money from MIMPO. I believe Mashmi, I don't know the exact amount. And that's about it for now. What I can say, however, is that we are now seeing, we heard from Tomer in his presentation that it's a long run, it takes 7 years. I can say that we are now seeing some of our teams from the first generation of ZIP from 2 years ago and the second generation from a year and a half ago finally starting to come around to getting an MVP, to getting serious interest from early stage investors. And I'm really happy to see that those teams have been pushing ahead with their projects in spite of the fact that they have not got funding yet. Yes, for some companies it takes a long time. We all are pushing them to be fast, to move fast, to break things. But in reality, even when you are going fast, it takes quite some time. Marco is there with Repsly, and he knows how long it takes to make an overnight success. And also Damir Sabo with Photomath, who is probably the most publicized startup lately in Croatia, has been working on that project for a long time, and suddenly has become an overnight success.
Yeah. Maybe the question was directed just briefly for 85,000 euros that we put up with fund, which we are going to invest in our teams in ZIP later. But from this money, none of the teams have got investment yet, because this investment is supposed to be given to sixth generation of the teams which are still in progress. So some of them probably will get funded out of these 85,000 euros which we put up over the crowd investment platform with Seeders, if you were referring to this. Okay, since I know that our moderator is already killing us, I would just like to thank you with big applause to